what happens when a man realizes that sometimes his dreams are in perfect sync with future events? Then we take a look at the story of a young woman who has to use the restroom at a Walmart, but when she enters, she gets way more than she bargains for. You're like, Jason, is it a disgusting bathroom story? No, it's actually quite bizarre. And finally, we take a look at the story of a family out on vacation. When they move their stuff into the cabin that they will be occupying for the next couple days, they have no idea that this cabin comes with a friendly, furry friend. But is this dog just some mutt begging for scraps, or is he there to save their souls? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a ton of stuff to cover today, so let's go ahead and get started. First off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Tayshana. Woohoo, yeah, Tayshana's running on into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. So I've been cleaning up. I'm building that studio in my place, and I'm finding a bunch of stuff, lists, right? And you're like, Jason, you're finding more lists of people you don't know if they got their shout-outs. Yeah, I am. This is from a while back. Tayshana sent me a book. So, and I found this packet of Amazon receipts. I'm sure she got a shout-out, but I'm not entirely 100%. So because of that, I don't remember what the gift was, but because of that, I have paper receipt. You gave me something. Tayshana, you're going to be our captain or pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or through the Amazon wish list, where I usually have books that I'm looking at, it's totally fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Also, very soon, in a couple weeks, Port Gamble Ghost Conference in Port Gamble, Washington, November 7th through the 9th. I will be speaking there. So if you want to come and see me, you can meet me there. It's a lot of fun, even if you're not able to get there for me. If you get there late, I'm the first guy speaking. Come anyways, because there's a lot of great speakers, a lot of great vendors, and they have ghost tours available at Port Gamble as well. Port Gamble Ghost Conference. The links will be in the show notes. Okay, Tayshana, we got a lot to cover, so let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys to the Dead Rabbit Dune Buggy. Everyone climb on board as Tayshana fires this bad boy up. We're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Why don't you dune us all the way out to a Walmart? Tayshana's driving us all the way out to Walmart. This is a very short story. This is a story that I've told multiple times in real life, and people always go, "Aww." Well, Jason, I mean, we listen to your podcast, it's supposed to be spooky. I want to hear blood and guts. I want to hear cannibalism and sexy reptilians. Well, you might find this story disgusting. It does take place in a bathroom. It's a very interesting story. It's very short, but it's one that's been on my mind since I read it a couple months ago, honestly. We're headed all the way out to this Walmart. We're about to meet a young girl. We don't have a real name. We'll call her Natalie. She's 8, so like really young. She's at Walmart, and she has to use the bathroom. That is scary, right? That can be scary. She's walking through the store, the lights go out, and she sees the boogeyman hiding in the toy section. Come here, Natalie. No, she's walking through the Walmart, a totally normal Walmart, not scary at all, or very scary, depending on which area the Walmart's in. I've been in some ones that are terrifying. But anyways, she's walking through this Walmart. She gets into the bathroom, and then she goes into the stall. But as she's sitting there, I mean, she heard her the second she walked in, right? She walked in, and she's like, damn it. She didn't say that, she said, damn it, but I think that might be what we say. Natalie, when she walks into the women's restroom, she hears, But Natalie, she goes and she sits down on the toilet, and she just hears this woman sobbing in the stall next to her. And Natalie goes, this woman's crying. And I can see in that bathroom stall, I see, obviously her feet. And what appeared to be luggage, or a piece of luggage, or a packed bag in there. as if someone was maybe going on a trip. These would be inconsequential details with no context, right? How often do you walk into a restroom at Walmart and you see a bag on the ground? You're not like, oh, I'm going to remember that for later. But thinking back, Natalie goes, well, you can start to build a picture of this person in the stall next to you. Packed bags. She's leaving somewhere, her own accord. Maybe she got kicked out. Maybe she's homeless. Maybe she's on a trip right now and she's just done and she's breaking down in the restroom of this Walmart. Natalie's sitting there on the toilet and she hears the woman next door going, oh. And she's also saying things. This woman in the next stall is saying things like, what have I done? No, what have I done? Oh my God, what have I done? Oh, this is unforgivable. Oh, this is so unforgivable. What have I done? Natalie's just sitting there. You're like, what? Oh my God. This woman's sobbing, and she's definitely done something, right? What is unforgivable? Natalie's just sitting there. She's just doesn't know what to do. I don't think most people wouldn't know what to do in this situation, especially saying things like that. That is when Natalie hears another voice coming from inside the bathroom stall next to her. She's like, what? There's only one person in there. What have I done? What have I done? Natalie goes, there's only one set of feet when I walked by. She hears a second voice, and the voice says, as this woman's still sobbing and crying about everything, this voice in the bathroom stall says, this is a quote. Stay with me, though, okay? Just stay with me. Let me finish the story. The quote, Natalie's sitting there. She hears a voice coming from the stall next to her. A man's voice. A second voice is speaking while the woman is still sobbing. She hears a second male voice say, quote, I am Jesus. I forgive you. Don't worry. It'll be okay. Natalie... She's like, what? What is going on? And she looks down to confirm what she already knows is true. She looks down. There was only one set of feet in that bathroom stall. Natalie hurried out of the restroom after hearing that. What's interesting, Natalie says, listen, I am not a religious person. I'm not a religious person. I wasn't a religious back then. Don't consider myself a religious person. But I have no idea what that was. She just can't figure it out, what that could have been. Not even speaking as a skeptic, like she's not into religious stuff. So she's not hallucinating it, or she hopes not. And she doesn't really believe in Jesus. Especially not a magical version of him. There are people who don't believe Jesus was a miracle worker or the Son of God, but go, oh, I'm sure he was alive at some point, and I'm sure people followed him. But... she's like, no, he was invisible. He was invisible. He can apparently teleport. He just pop into a bathroom stall. And he has the power to forgive? What? I need to spread the good news. It's an interesting... it's funny because as a Southern Baptist, this story is like completely modern day miracle, right? This idea... I'm not going to go on and on about religion. Before you hit the fast forward button, I have another tack to take on this. As a Southern Baptist, I hear this story and I go, wow, that's really fascinating. Like, that's what my faith says is possible. That when you're down and out, or even when you're having the time of your life, Jesus can show up and give you thumbs up, pat you on the back. Or, it's probably not when you're winning the pool tournament. You're like, woo! Jesus is like, yes, I had $100,000 riding on you. You're like, what? It's a lot of money, Jesus. But Jesus doesn't just show up when you're having a bad day type of thing. I don't, Jason, where's this come from? I've never heard Jesus showing up when things are great. Might be a warning sign. You're like, hey, look at this. I finally learned how to sail a boat and I'm going out on my own. And then you see Jesus is standing on the deck of the ship. He's like, hey, what's up, man? You're like, oh, am I going to need several miracles to get out of this? Jesus is like, yep. No, but it's this idea that God's with you all the time, right? It's this idea that at your highest point and your lowest point and everywhere in between, you are not alone. It's not just when you're down and out. But the idea of definitely what this woman was going through, Jesus would be there for her. That's part of my faith. What's interesting is I've told this story to a lot of people in real life. And people who aren't religious, just like Natalie here. And they go, oh, that's kind of a sweet story. And it's an interesting story because there's just enough information for us to kind of figure out what's going on. And this is why I said, wait till I finish, because the fact that I do believe this story is true. I do believe Natalie experienced this and something did pop up in this bathroom. I do think it's quite odd that Jesus called himself Jesus in this. You know what I mean? Like, for the sake of the story, if you just heard a voice saying, it's going to be okay. I forgive you. It's going to be okay. It would still be a very interesting story. I would still cover it on this show. I'd be like, that'd be weird. You hear a woman just having a mental breakdown, and then you hear a man's voice tell her everything's going to be okay. It's very interesting that he announced, I am Jesus. If you were in a bathroom stall, if you were anywhere down and out, and all of a sudden a man magically appeared in front of you, I guess you probably wouldn't assume he was Jesus, and there's a lot of different depictions of how you think Jesus is. Is it the very dark-skinned, kind of rough-looking guy? Is it the very popularized version of Jesus, which is based on a painter's son, I believe? I think Jesus can kind of appear however he wants, but would he announce it? Would he go, hey, I'm Jesus. Everything's going to be okay. I imagine, on the one hand, it's very interesting because if Natalie hadn't heard that first part, it still would be an interesting story. It would still be a third voice, or second voice, really, speaking. But narratively, we wouldn't have been able to go, oh, Jesus is with us when we're down and out. And according to Jason, also, when we're riding high. If Jesus appeared in your room like that, he might announce who he is. He's like, hey, I don't know if you've heard of me, but I'm the Son of God. And you're like, oh yeah, vaguely, is that you? You point up at a painting. It's a picture of Jesus holding a lamb. He goes, yeah, that's me. It doesn't really look like me, but they got the essence right. I love lambs, and I love you too. Hope you're having a better day. He's all, see ya. You're like, what? That was it? He's like, I got a poker tournament to cheer a guy on for. Whee! Floats away. It's interesting, right? Would he announce who he was? Because you might be startled that all of a sudden there's a dude in your room. And he goes, you're having a really bad day. And then all of a sudden you hear a voice go, hey, it's okay, man. You'll get through this. And you roll over and it's just a guy standing there. You're throwing a lamp at him. And he's like, what? Huh? What? He goes, oh, yeah. Let him know who I am. He also probably shouldn't have kicked at the front door. I can magically appear in rooms. It makes sense that he would announce his presence like that. But again, like, how does he appear? These are all very interesting questions to me. And I think even just as a spiritual or a paranormal idea, how would Jesus appear? Would he be wearing his traditional robe? I don't really think so. But maybe. Maybe he's wearing a business suit. I'm not trying to be blasphemous either. Like, these are legit questions. I've been accused of being blasphemous before, even before the show, for asking questions like this. But would he show up in a business suit? Would it be casual wear? Would it be appropriate to the location? So he's wearing like Walmart clothing? It still has the tags off the back. He's like, listen, I gotta make this miracle quick. Security's looking for me. Don't worry, ma'am. Everything will be okay. Whee! You know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's very interesting. How would he appear? And you could broaden this out to any deity. How would Zeus appear? Would he show up in his toga? Would he be in Walmart clothing? He's all just lightning bolting the security cameras. No one can catch me. I'm Zeus. Oh, by the way, everything will be okay. Interesting. He may have to have said who he was. Otherwise, she would have been startled. I would think, though, even Billy Bob Thornton can magically appear in my bathroom stall. I'm going to have a heart attack. Whether or not it's Jesus, it's still going to be freaky. Like, it's still going to be unsettling for a moment. But I guess now that I think about it, Natalie didn't see his feet. So did his voice just appear? You're like, yes, Jason. It was just his voice. He didn't show up in Walmart clothing, you buffoon. It's just his voice. It's just his voice. It's a little less startling. Interesting story. It's funny, speaking on that, I did an episode, I think, 2 days ago. I've been sick. I'm still sick. My mouth is completely dry. I have a bubble of liquid in my ear. I went to the doctor today. It's going to last a while. But anyways, I think it was Monday's episode. I was losing my mind. And now, as I was editing it, I was like, Jason, I think you're going crazy. I think you're so sick. You spend so much time talking for the podcast that you expend all this energy. And then you're just kind of laid low for the next 12 hours as you're recovering. I go, dude, I think it was, here, I'll tell you what it was, and then we'll move on to the next story, because it's the story about the coins. The coins appearing out of nowhere. And listening back to that episode, I could hear how sick I was. I think I also say, hey, I'm not feeling good. But now, like, as I was editing it that night, I was like, dude, what was up? Because I go, how can the ghosts make money? The ghosts are making money. I was losing it. The ghosts, they make money. It's the most powerful thing humans can do. You have to mine ore and then make a machine to mint a coin, but the ghosts make it. Wake up, sheeple. Wake up. All the money's ghosts. Throw your money out. Throw your money off the bridge. Toss pennies off the Empire State Building. Do it. And, I mean, listen, I like that episode. I definitely like the enthusiasm. Alex Jones called me up after that, offered me a job. And then as I was editing it, and I started to feel better because, I can take medicine and rest and all that stuff, and I'm not talking for an hour straight, usually longer, and then I have to edit it down. I was listening to the episode, and I go, wait a second. Who said that they're making money? They can just steal it. It can come from anywhere. Coins are everywhere. They don't have to print money, you idiots. I was thinking about that, and honestly, I was waiting to get some YouTube comments and some email saying, Jason, they don't have to own a printing press. The ghost to make a quarter appear out of nowhere, because it is quite common. Pennies from the ceiling is a very, very common ghostly occurrence. It happens so much we don't even really talk about it anymore. I was listening to it, and I was like, that'd be the easiest thing to steal. And it doesn't even have to be pennies from you. It could be pennies from anywhere. If you had a couple dimes go missing over the course of a year, you'd never know. And if across town dimes are appearing out of nowhere and they're always heads up in that house, it's still interesting. It's still an interesting story. But I was like, they're making money. You don't understand. They're making money. We have to find where they mine the ore. We have to shut them down. I was listening to it when I could sit back and think about it with a rational mind. I go, Jason, and I almost didn't release, I had to release the episode. I really like it. I really like the coin stuff. And the first story about the lightning bolt turning a little girl into a little boy. I mean, it was great stuff. But I think the last 15 minutes of that episode, I'm like, you don't understand. Maybe I'm exaggerating it. That's what it sounded like to me. And as I was editing it, I go, they're not. Maybe they are making the money, which again would be weird, but I go, if I had 35 cents disappear from my house, I would never know. Never know. And if across town, pennies started falling from a ceiling once every couple weeks, and they always landed heads up, that would have been my 35 cents. They didn't actually mint money. I was like, how did they do it? You can take one of these coins to a pawn shop. They'll analyze it, and they'll tell you it's real. Yeah, this is the problem. This is the problem. I do continue to do the podcast whenever I'm sick, because I want to get this show out, but it always leads to oddness like that. But anyways, I had a lot of fun, but I did have to address that. I'm actually surprised no one emailed me about that, because it was quite wild. Hey, Shauna, let's go ahead and toss the keys to the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We're leaving behind Walmart. Why don't you fly us all the way out to Virginia? Headed all the way out to Virginia. Specifically, we're headed to Hocking Hills, Virginia, which I believe we've covered before on this show. If we have, I will check it out and put in some show. Let me check right now, actually. Here's some weird serendipity for you. We've talked about Hocking Hills a single time on this podcast, at least according to my archives here. And it was about a bathroom troll. It was this weird troll creature hiding in one of the public restrooms as the woman was trying to take a shower. I'll put the episode in the show notes. This is very interesting, right? I guess we just did a bathroom story. And now we're back in Hocking Hills? I don't know. Maybe it means something. We're headed all the way out to Hocking Hills. It's the late 1990s. We're about to meet a young boy. Let's call him Adam. He's 12. And him and his parents, they've rented a cabin for a week-long vacation. They're driving up to the campground in their car. Adam's just kind of sitting in the back, and all of a sudden, plink, 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 and he's like, what? What's going on? His mom and his dad are like, oh no, look! I guess it's not that dramatic. The dad's like, covers his eyes. They veer off of the road. No, what they hear, what that sound was rocks pelting the side of their car. And Dad's driving and he's like, who's throwing rocks at us? And Adam's like, what? Yeah, who is throwing rocks at us? And Mom goes, I don't know, honey, but keep your eyes on the road. They're being pelted by rocks on both sides of the car. And they figure it's just some local kids having fun. They can't see anyone because the woods are so thick alongside of this road. But they're like, whatever. Just someone damaging the paint of my vehicle. Nothing to worry about. They can't see anything. It wasn't as much as I made it sound to. I made it sound like gunfire. It was just a rock here or there. But they couldn't see anyone. Anyways, they get to the cabin, and for the first few days, everything is copacetic. They're just hanging out, walking around, feeling the cold Hocking hair, or warm Hocking hair breeze on their face, staying up late, sitting around the campfire. Boring stuff, right? But eventually, a dog wanders up to the cabin. And Adam goes, whoa, look at this dog. He is totally chill, right? He's trying to hide the multiple dog bites to his arm. Can we keep him, Mom and Dad? Can we keep him? No, this dog walks up, who we will call Chewy. He shows up and he's just like a stray dog, but a friendly looking dog. He's not like this raggedy old mutt. Doesn't look super dangerous. Really, he's only dangerous to the leftovers because he wants some scraps. Oh, Chewy, here you go. Chew on this. Chew on this chicken bone. And dog eats it up. Do dogs eat watermelon rinds, I wonder? I don't know. But it has nothing to do with this story. It just popped in my head. I think they just eat meat and like birds and stuff like that. What do dogs eat? They eat meat, right? They don't eat vegetables. Chewy's walking around now, and he's just kind of a very pleasant dog. Adam's family totally is like, dude, you know what? While we're here, let's take care of this cool dog. It's not like he's spending the night, right? They're all getting fleas. They're all, worst vacation ever. He would just wander by and get food from him and hang out during the day, and then he would go away. They figured it was a neighbor's dog or another camper dog. He'd just walk around looking for food. No harm, no foul. Well, one day, they have Chewy there. He's just sitting on the porch. Oh, good Chewy. Let's scratch you behind the ears. And the family goes, hey guys, let's go for a walk. We're going to walk down this path we haven't been down before, but there's so many paths in Hocking Hills. This one will probably be exactly like all the other ones. Ooh, look, we're walking down a dirt road, and look up, there's a tree. Look to your side, there's a squirrel. Let's do that for about 3 miles. It's just something to do in the outdoors. So the family decides to go on this hike, and Chewy wants to go with him. Oh, isn't that cool? Chewy's going to come with us this time. Chewy is walking with the family. They go on this hike. Now, this particular path they hadn't been on before, and it's leading them through the forest like every other hiking trail in the world that's not notable. But as they are walking further and further down this trail, they start to realize that the forest seems to be getting thicker and thicker on either side, and in fact, the trails seem to get darker and darker. Adam goes, it was really weird. We all were noticing it. We all kind of go, hey, this is weird. Why is the trail getting so dark? Because it's in the daytime. And it's not even like there was an immense amount of tree cover over their head. They could look up, they could see the sun in the sky. It wasn't like it was completely crowded over the top. Yet, it was darker on that trail than it was at the start of the trail. Measurably, visually, you could say that. Chewy is walking behind them as they continue down this trail. Adam's dad is walking, and he starts to get this feeling that they're not supposed to be here. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't want to alarm anybody, and it just feels, what are you afraid of, the boogeyman in the woods? So they keep walking. Adam's mom is walking, and she gets this feeling that they should not be there. Someone is watching them, or something is watching them. But they keep walking. Adam begins to feel this sensation in his body. Something doesn't want them there. The word he used was oppressive. That's how it felt. And yet they kept walking. The sounds of the forest have fallen silent. The only sound is their footsteps, the casual conversation between the three of them, and Chewie. But Chewie is no longer walking behind them. In fact, Chewie is now running around them in a circle. It's moving around the trail, and it's basically keeping them from going forward. And so they'd stop. Chewie then walked down the trail towards the cabin, like walked back towards where the cabin was. And Adam and his family would look over and be like, Chewie, are you okay? And they would start walking further away from the cabin, further down the trail. Or is it up the trail? They're walking further up the trail. Cabin is down the trail. Chewie would then run in circles around them again until they stopped. Chewie would then begin to run back down the trail, and he would stop and he would look at them. And they'd go, Chewie, what? Chewie, come on. Come on. Don't go home alone. Come on. And they begin walking up the trail even further. Chewie ran back to the group, started running in circles around them. He just did the same thing over and over and over again. Run around circles, then retreat down the trail, stop, look at them. And when they continued walking, he's like, damn it, can't these people speak danger language? And he did this quite a few times. And yet they continued to walk forward until finally Chewie ran around them in circles. And Adam goes, you could totally tell this dog was weirded out about something. Like, he looked anxious. He looked worried. And so he ran around us one last time, ran down the trail a bit, stopped, looked at us, and we looked back at him and started walking. And as we were walking away, he just whined. And then ran down the trail back towards the cabin. Alone. This had been going on, right, for not the longest time. Because every time they would start to walk a little bit more, he would do this again. He was really restricting their movement. So they really hadn't made much progress since he started doing this. But now that Chewie had run away, they're like, okay, let's just keep going on. Let's keep going on this oppressive walk that we're not telling each other how creepy it is, but we are all feeling it. They take a few more steps. Adam goes, Chewie took off the other direction. He goes, we walked maybe a few more feet. And all three of us came to a dead stop. Adam, his mother, and his father are standing there on the trail, and they look just a bit further up the trail. It's pitch black. Middle of the day, and yet this part of the forest, Adam said, quote, it was pitch black, like looking into a windowless basement, unquote. That kind of black. And any feeling that the place felt oppressive or that something was there that didn't want them to be there, these feelings that they'd been having for a while, this is where these feelings were coming from. That's 100% what Adam felt. It's from there. Like, whatever we're feeling out here, even though it's dark, and it shouldn't be, that is darker. Even though we don't feel good and we feel like we're being watched out here, that is what has been watching us. At that point, Adam's mom and dad look at each other and they go, you know what, actually, I think we've hiked enough for today. I think we should probably go back to the cabin. Adam goes, yeah, I think that's a good idea. So they turn and they start walking back down the trail towards the cabin. And Adam can't shake this sense that something's following him. But he just keeps walking. What else are you going to do, right? It's the best course of action. But Adam goes, I was walking there with my parents, and every so often I'd look up at one of them to see how they were reacting, because he's obviously feeling all of this stuff. How are they reacting? He said, in my entire life, I've never seen my parents that terrified. Not before, not since. They didn't say anything. We just kept walking. But I've never seen them that scared in my life. He said the entire way back, it felt like something was following him. And he said what he sensed this thing was something that absolutely hated their very existence. This thing wasn't passive. It wanted to destroy them. When this family finally makes it back to the cabin, who's sitting on the porch? Chewie. He's probably shaking his head. Right? He's probably like, well, I didn't expect all three of you to make it back. I guess I warned you enough, but you guys should have listened to me. Adam goes, he thinks about Chewie differently nowadays. What they did, let me finish the story here. He goes, eventually they find out from one of the locals, which I've never rented a cabin before, but apparently there's like a person on site to like rent it from or something like that, maybe. Especially back in the 90s when you couldn't do any of this stuff online. You don't just show up and put money into a box on the outside of the cabin. There's like a receptionist. There's a small town, whatever, attached to nearby here. Because Adam goes, later on we talked to the receptionist of the cabins, whoever that is. And they kind of said, hey, we went hiking down that trail. We went hiking down a trail the other day. It was actually kind of creepy. Do you guys ever hear like creepy stories out here? You're local. You probably hear a lot of stuff. And the receptionist of the cabins goes, oh, yeah, no, totally. Right? That totally happens up here. Especially don't use the public restrooms. It's full of trolls. She said, we get stories from time to time from locals and from visitors about the woods. Just some creepy encounters people have out there. This is where they also found out that Chewie did belong to one of the locals. He lived at a local home, but would always visit campers. The interesting thing is he wouldn't just wander around the campgrounds, wander around the cabins looking for scraps. No, he lived in one of two locations at any given point in the day. His home or the cabin that Adam's family was renting. He wasn't spotted walking around any of the other cabins. He wasn't spotted walking around and harassing campers or hikers for food. His house and that cabin is where Chewie hung out. And looking back on it, Adam goes, I think Chewie knew what was down that trail. And he knew that people at this particular cabin would go down that trail. And so he would come and visit whenever someone moved into that cabin for a week or a weekend or what have you. He goes, well, time to go to work. Time to go work. Hey, Bob, quit throwing that frisbee. You can take a day off. I'll walk myself all the way to protecting humans. He goes to that cabin. Adam says, I think he was always there to protect people who check that cabin out. It's an interesting story. The reason why I wanted to cover it for a couple different reasons. One, recently during our Dead Rabbit Radio movie night, I forgot who brought it up, but it is brought up more often than not. We were talking about it during the Dead Rabbit movie night or Dead Rabbit Radio movie morning, one of the two. Dogs have a very low likelihood to survive if they appear on an episode of Dead Rabbit Radio, which is true. I think almost every time we talk about dogs, they die. So I wanted to highlight a story where that didn't happen. You're like, Jason, I was expecting the dog to die the entire time. So I wanted to highlight the story for that one. I also wanted to highlight it, for a bunch of different reasons, actually. I really like this story. I think it's interesting. You go, Jason, how come only that cabin? If the trail was available for anyone to go down, it wasn't just accessible by that cabin, wouldn't Chewie have to be at the other cabins to keep him? I thought about that too, actually. And it could be that this cabin's fairly close to this trail, but remember, they hadn't walked down this trail before. If it was the closest one, they probably would have taken it the first time. I wonder if everything is more interconnected than we think. Where people who stay at that cabin, it's very interesting because we have this idea that we get up to do things because we decide to do them or not to do them. It's old world to think people do things because of spirits. Not saying a ghost says you should drink a Coca-Cola today and then you go buy a Coca-Cola. But that may happen. But imagine you're at that cabin and there is a completely unseen, even unheard spirit presence that wants them to walk down that trail. That type of psychic assault the other cabins don't get, but for whatever reason, that particular cabin, they go, hey, let's choose this trail completely out of random, and it's 100% our choice, but really it wasn't. They were being psychically enticed to choose that particular trail. And that's why Chewie would show up at that cabin. If Chewie showed up at all the cabins and he kept everyone from walking down the trail, then he is a very good dog, for sure. But there seems to be a connection between that cabin and that trail because he only hangs out at that cabin when he's not at home. So you got to think, are they psychically being drawn towards a particular place? Possibly. Possibly. And that's kind of scary because it removes this idea of free will. You get up and go to the fridge to grab a drink because you want to, not because something is telling you to. But we may have less free will in certain scenarios than we would like to admit. It's also interesting because, this thing just kind of wanted to destroy them. It wasn't trying to ward them off. It hated them and it was watching them. And you could imagine that was also the rocks pelting against the van or the car when it was taking them. That was also this force. Question to you. Was that a protective presence trying to get them to drive the opposite direction and go back home? Was that Chewie? Was that Chewie and his pack of lovable dogs throwing rocks at the car? Or is that the beginning of the assault? It's funny. I have to say, my ignorance of camping can complicate the story a little bit because when I think of cabins, I think of multiple cabins in a relatively small area, kind of like a summer camp. And now that I'm thinking about it, that might not be true. There may be a wide areas of forest between each cabin. And this cabin might have been the only one with the trail. And there was no enticing. It was just happened to be a nice trail that was there. But when I imagine a campground or cabins, I imagine a bunch of them, like Camp Crystal Lake, in a fairly small area. But maybe I'm wrong. Probably am, actually. This idea that animals know more about the spirit world than we do is absolutely fascinating to me. And I think that's just kind of a base thing, like a basic part of the world that, because you always say dogs can sense spirits, cats can see ghosts. They're not burdened with all these ideas of things that don't exist. They see something, it's real. No one ever tells them, no, ghosts aren't real. So your brain isn't trying to avoid processing any paranormal information. I remember reading something recently, too. I know I'm just kind of like jumping around from point to point here. But they said the most successful symbiotic relationship in the history of the planet Earth is man and dog. And I go, I guess, right? I started thinking of those birds that clean the teeth of crocodiles. They eat the meat. The crocodiles don't get cavities. Win-win. But they were explaining that there's never been two species that have worked together so well as canines and humans. Nothing. And this might be one of the reasons why. Obviously, we feed the dogs, we take care of the dogs, and they provide us protection. They allow us to guard the caves. They allowed us to guard the city perimeter. They allowed us to guard bigger and bigger areas, and now they're pets. But for a long time, they were more useful than that. You kind of had to have them. And they're also able to detect paranormal threats as well. Something humans just lack. Even back then, even back when people believed in the evil eye and spirits everywhere and things like spirits are in different parts of your body, making you sick, even when people were more believing in all that stuff, dogs still had an advantage to see things, to go places, to be maybe more brave and less foolish than a human. Because really, at the end of the day, this all could have been avoided if the family had turned around. Not when the rocks were pelting. You could just, write that off. That would be nothing notable had the rest of the story hadn't happened. But when you're walking down a trail and you feel like something's watching you, you should just turn around. I mean, you're like, Jason, you just hate camping and you hate hiking. You're like, what? The wind blew onto my neck. That's it. I'm getting a refund on the cabin. We're leaving. No, I would assume at the very beginning it was a mountain lion. If you got the feeling you're being watched in the woods, I'm out of there. But you also have this interesting thing. We see this all the time, paranormal stories, people not talking to each other. Because if the dad had stopped and goes, hey, you know what? I got a really weird feeling all of a sudden. I feel like something's watching us. And then the mom goes, you know what? I had the exact same feeling. I feel like something's watching us and doesn't want us to be here. And then Adam goes, yeah, let's just go. I feel the same thing. It could have all been avoided. They all would have went back and had a nice little snack with Chewie. Chewie would just sit on that porch like a good boy. Another family rescued. He didn't have to do anything. They all communicated with each other. But instead, they kept barreling forward. It's foolish. That is foolish that humans will do that. And dogs, I guess, are dumb too. Dogs do stupid stuff all the time. But in this case, Chewie knew it was down that path. And had Chewie not been there, you wonder if they would have kept walking. Because remember, he was halting their progress for quite a while. Again, it wasn't a matter of hours or anything. They're like getting dehydrated. They're all, we're running out of food, Chewie. Please, let us go. He's just running around him in a circle. No, it wasn't that far, but I mean, it was like right after he left, they took a few more feet, and then they're like, no, we gotta leave. So he was really trying to slow them down. It is funny, though, that he left them. He's like, you know what, man? I've spent the past couple minutes trying to get you guys to leave. I'm out of here. And you wonder how many times Chewie has gone back to that cabin, not knowing if the people he were just trying to protect are ever coming back. And you go, Jason, well, I mean, that should be a good indicator, right? Is there ever stories of people disappearing in Hocking Hills, or people in this particular cabin have a higher rate of vanishing or getting lost in the woods? I got to wrap it up because they're doing some street cleaning out there. They activated some machine. Do you hear that? Yeah, anyways. So, I know, not that I could tell, because they would just shut the cabin down or put up a warning saying, hey, by the way, every 8th person who stays here disappears forever. But it's not that simple, right? That's very movie-like. You go down the woods, and the dad gets dragged away, and the mother and the son make it back to the cabin, and they call 911, and they never find the dad's body. That could be how it would happen. It'd be pretty dramatic and pretty cool scene in a movie, right? But it's very easy if you're walking down this path and you're not paying attention to the signs and you keep barreling in, that you don't get attacked there, that something attaches itself to you, that you then bring out of the woods and take it back into the cabin, and it stays attached to you, and you guys go back to wherever you guys came from, and you're living at home, and now you have this dark entity, this evil energy attached to you, and its goal is the destruction of mankind. So that you would never be able to track that. If it turns out that 3 years after staying in this cabin and walking down that trail, every 14th person who rented out that cabin ends up beating their wife to a bloody pulp. You know, you wouldn't ever really be able to track that. A hiker goes down that trail and ignores the dog's signs. Maybe doesn't even like Chewie in the first place, right? Not everyone's a dog person. Continues to walk down that trail, keeps walking, gets to it's really dark, keeps walking, not really paying attention to the signs he's feeling inside. Gets kind of weirded out, but nothing happens. He ends up coming out the other end of the trail, and he looks out, he sees this beautiful valley. He goes, wow, I'm glad I did that trip. And he comes back through, and the place is still dark and oppressive, but he's not listening to his inner self. He gets to the cabin, goes home. 8 months later, he gets arrested because he's downloading child porn. And it was the... You go, wait. Was he into child porn before the monster from the forest attached to him? No, he wasn't. But then he just became evil. He gets back from his camping trip. His eyes are pitch black. They're like, hey, Jimmy, how was your camping trip? It was excellent. Also, what's your Wi-Fi password? I'm like, what? Jimmy? No, he was a pervert afterward. You're like, Jason, that's more ridiculous than the dad being drug off through the dark tunnel of trees. My point is that evil can attach itself to you, and you can carry it forward, which is a big risk of being a paranormal investigator. This place seems steeped in negative energy, anti-human energy. And if not for the sake of a dog named Chewie, a canine protector, whose ancestors once protected cavemen from dinosaurs, right? The dinosaurs, as the dogs that once protected our ancestors from all sorts of enemies, Chewie continues that proud tradition today, protecting people staying in cabins from becoming huge child predators, or just getting dragged off into the forest. Chewie, either way, though, great job for helping humanity out, just like your forefathers. Protecting us from the evil that lurks inside the forest. Protecting us from becoming that evil ourselves. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great weekend, guys.